Hey guys, this is Anthony Morganti from anthonymorganti.com, and this is episode 29 of Learn Lightroom 5. And in this episode, we're going to develop a winter snow scene. Now, those of you that know me are probably chuckling a little bit right now because you know I do not like snow and ice. I don't like cold. So I don't have a lot of shots in my library of winter scenes. But I did go out this morning because I live in Buffalo, New York, which it's kind of hard to avoid snow and ice. So I went out this morning to a golf course, which is literally 2 minutes from where I live, and I went out of my car for maybe 8-10 minutes, and I just shot some shots. And it's nothing I'm proud of, but it will be able to show you how to develop the shot, scene, a snow scene. What you're going to find when you do photograph a winter scene, you're going to be struck with two challenges right away, and they're exposure and white balance. What happens is, because there's so much white, so much snow, and it's reflecting so much light, your camera is going to get fooled, and it's going to try to bring all this white towards neutral gray. That's what it wants to do. It wants to have the majority of the pixels in the middle of the histogram, like this, right this. So when it does that, in this case, it's going to underexpose the shot. It gets fooled. The other thing with white balance is, now in this shot I didn't have to worry about white balance that much because it's an overcast, very gray day. Because the snow is such a good reflector, it will reflect whatever color light is shining on it. And your camera will want to make that light neutral. So where you're going to run into problems is, let's say you're photographing a house, a snow-covered cabin, and there's some floodlights on the house. The floodlights are warm, like a yellow-orange light, and your camera's going to try to make that warm light cool. It's going to make it neutral, but in doing so, it's going to cool it off. So it's adding blue to the scene. But when it does that, the light in the snow that the light is shining on is going to be white, but everything else is going to have a blue cast to it, and that's why you get these weird color casts, and with the snow. So you got to either compensate for that in camera by doing a custom white balance, and it's beyond the scope of Learn Lightroom 5 video series on how to do that, but it's not that hard to do, and you could figure it out, look at your owner's manual of your camera. But just in case you didn't do it, it's easy to correct in Lightroom, and I'm going to show you how, even though in the two shots we're going to do today, they're really not, the white balance isn't really off that much. But the main thing too, as I mentioned, we're going to start with exposure. And what I did was, for the demonstration purposes, I went out and I bracketed 3 shots. So I had one shot that was underexposed, one properly exposed, and one shot overexposed. At least that's how my camera saw it, okay? This shot was the properly exposed shot. This shot was one stop underexposed, and this shot was one stop overexposed. Now you can see none of them are good. They're all a little off. You'll find that in a gray scene like this, you'll have to add a little positive exposure compensation, just a little, maybe 1/3 to 2/3 of a stop. If it was a real bright day, the sky was clear and the sun was shining, I might have to add as much as 2 stops. So you're wise to take a test shot with a +1 stop exposure compensation, and then move it from there. If it's still underexposed, add a little more. If it's overexposed, add a little less. You also could bracket the shots. I used a Nikon D800E. It's real easy to bracket. I bracketed one stop under, and one stop over, and of course the one right in the middle. I could have I think it does like 9 shots of different I could do a 9-shot bracket or something like that. I could put them all on the positive side, so I could have 3 that are all positively exposed. So experiment and make sure you try to nail the exposure in camera if possible. The white balance, as I mentioned, do your best for that, and then I'll show you how to correct it in Lightroom. Now, as I mentioned, there's 2 shots. I did this scene here. This is what my camera thought was properly exposed. This is 1 stop under and 1 stop over. You can see the 1 stop over is just a little bit too much. So what I'm going to do on both of these shots, I'm going to develop the 2 shots that my camera thought was properly exposed, because those are the ones that you most likely will have if you didn't do any exposure compensation. So I'm going to do this one first because this one's a little easier of a shot, and it will just give you some main points. The first thing I want to do when I'm presented with this type of shot is I want to go to exposure right away, and I want to take care of exposure. And as I mentioned, one stop, as you saw, was a little too much, but it looks like around 0.6 or so is 0.65 looks good right there. So that seems to be properly exposed. The second thing I want to do is I want to take care of white balance. Now, white balance isn't bad in this shot. It was a uniformly gray day, but I'm going to show you how to do it. And I did do previous video in the Learn Lightroom series where I showed how to adjust for white balance. And the easiest way to do it in this scene, because of this expansive gray sky, is to just grab this eyedropper right here and just go up into the gray sky. And now when I click on the gray sky, now it's going to want to warm it up a little bit. So you're going to see the scene's going to get a little warmer, and just slightly. So it just brought it slightly warmer. So that's fine. That's all you got to do to adjust for your white balance. So when you do your scene, try to find something that looks to be a mid-tone gray in the shot, and use the eyedropper and click on that spot. And in this case, it would be the big gray sky I was presented with today. Okay, so that's now we got white balance out of the way and we got exposure out of the way. Now I'm going to develop this like I normally do. I want to put a graduated filter in first before I do any of these, because when I adjust my highlight, shadows, whites, and blacks, I want to take into account the graduated filter I already have there. And this sky is just ugly, so I want to minimize it. I talk about this a lot in the series I do on photo critiques, to minimize that in your photo which you don't want people to notice as readily. Now I should have probably did this in when I took the shot, not bullseyed it as much, and had less of the sky in the shot. But I was more concerned about my physical well-being, because as I said, I don't like cold. So I just fired off a few quick shots. So we're going to do the graduated filter, and I want to pull it straight down. So I'm going to hold the shift key down as I do this. So I pull it pretty straight. And I'm not going to bring it too far, just to there. I don't want it to affect the trees as much. And I do have just a little bit of negative exposure there, and maybe just a touch more. I don't want it too ridiculous, but I want it to be, I just want it darker. I don't want it as bright. I want people to notice these trees. Okay, so we did that. Now the next thing I want to do is I'm going to do my highlights and shadows like I normally do, kind of. I'm definitely going to bring highlights all the way down, okay, so that the all these bright parts are toned down a little bit. Now if I brought shadows all the way up, it's going to be too bright, as you could see. So what I'm going to do is, and it takes out some of the texture that was in the sand. So I'm going to do this by eye, and you don't be afraid to do it by eye. Just keep inching it up until it looks too far, and then bring it back a little bit. And I'm going to go right about to there. Next I'm going to do the whites and blacks like I always do, except for on whites. Now I'm going to hold the Alt or Option key in, and when I bring whites up, and you know how typically I do this, I bring it up till I see something, then I bring it till there's just a little bit there. I'm going to bring it back so there's just nothing there, right there. Okay? I just don't want any of this white to be overbearing. I just want it as just on the edge. Okay? Now the blacks, I'm going to do the same thing, the Alt or Option key, click down on it, bring it back. But in this case, I'm not afraid to have some of that coming through, so I'm going to have the blacks coming through. Now, as you can see, it added some contrast just doing those two adjustments. Next, I'm going to bring clarity quite far, okay, and I'm going to bring contrast up a little, okay. Now, as I look at it, my the blacks and or shadows look to be just a little strong. So I'm going to go to the shadows. Now, like I said, don't be afraid to go back to these sliders and readjust them. I'm going to back the shadows down a little bit, and I'm going to readjust my blacks just a little bit. Bring it down a little bit, like that. Okay, so that's a little more pleasing to my eye. I'm going to bring vibrance up just a touch. Okay, so I'm done with the basic panel, and this is the image we started with, and that's where we stand so far. Now, as you can see, it was pretty much like I always do, except the shadows and the whites, the white point and the shadows, I didn't do quite like I always do. Next, I'm going to go to the HSL panel, and I want to enhance the little color that's left in these trees. So I'm going to go to the saturation tab of the HSL panel, and I'm going to bring orange up, and I'm going to bring yellow up, and I'm going to bring green up. Okay, then I'm going to go to the luminance panel, and I'm going to bring orange up, make it a little more bright, and I'm going to bring yellow up, make that a little brighter, and I'm going to leave green alone. So I kind of added some, color and some contrasting colors to the trees. And I'm done with that panel. Now I'm going to go down to the detail panel, and I'm going to sharpen the shot. Now I want to mention something about sharpening. People have told me, they've emailed me, or they've left comments in my videos that you should always do noise reduction before you do sharpening, because you don't want to sharpen noise. That's true if you're not using Lightroom. And why I say that is typically a lot of guys use Photoshop, and they use plugins to do sharpening and a plugin to do noise reduction. And if you run the plugin for sharpening first, you are sharpening the noise in the picture. Then you run the plugin for noise reduction, and you're trying to compensate by taking that noise away, and you'll lose some detail. So in that case, it's definitely better to do noise reduction first, then do sharpening. Why it's not really applicable in Lightroom is because these panels, they have individual sliders, but they all work in unison. They work together. When you slide one, the other ones are aware, okay, and they work together. Adobe laid out this workflow in an order that you might want to do it. You don't have to do it in basic tone, in this order, but they laid it out in a way you might want to do it. They wouldn't have put sharpening in front of noise reduction if that was the case, that they want you to do noise reduction first. So don't be afraid to do sharpening first. It's not in Lightroom. All right. Anything else, I would say yes, you want to make sure that you do noise reduction before you do sharpening. So I'm just going to pull it up for the sake of time to 86. I noticed on this camera that I'm using, this D800E, I could sharpen the heck out of the shot, and it doesn't add any noise. And as a matter of fact, I'm not even going to do any noise reduction. There's no noise in the shot. I am going to mask it just to show how to do it again. Alt or Option key. Click down on the mask slider, the whole screen turns white. When you move it to the right, the part that is white is the part that's being sharpened. The part that is black is not being sharpened. So we're just sharpening the trees in this shot. Okay, so I'm done with the detail panel. Next thing we're going to do, lens corrections. We're going to go and just enable profile corrections and remove chromatic aberration. As you can see, it brightened the shot a little bit when I enabled the profile corrections. Don't be afraid to go back up to the basic panel and adjust your exposure a little bit, until it's more pleasing to your eye. So don't, like I said, don't be, just because you adjusted the slider once doesn't mean you can't go back and do it again. And I'm going to hit auto. It does look maybe be a touch crooked. No, I don't like that. It made this tree trunk crooked. It made this one crooked. Everything's leaning to the right. So I guess I was better than the program. So I'm going to leave that off. We're going to go to Effects, and we're going to see what a vignette might look like. And I really don't like the vignette. It's making the sky look kind of like fake. So I really don't want that. We're going to go to camera calibration. Now remember, this is going to be different for what brand camera you're using and whether or not you shot in RAW or not. So my choices here won't be what you have. So you could just page through them. Typically, it's usually when I do a landscape, it's either camera landscape or it's going to be camera vivid. And in this case, they're like almost identical. So I'm just going to go with camera landscape. So in effect, this shot I'd say is done. The only thing I might do is I might go back to my graduated filter and just tweak it up, bring it a little bit darker. Oops, you know what? I didn't when I opened it, I have to click on this button here, see in my haste, to make it active. Now, I just could tweak it down a little bit. Just a little bit, not a lot of bit. Yeah, something like that. And there's some sensor spots in there, but I'm not going to waste time to take them out now. Because we've done that before. So now I'm going to go back to this shot. This shot's going to be a little more challenging. It's crooked. And it's underexposed. This is the one now. Still, my camera thought this was proper exposure. So we're going to go to the basic panel, and I'm going to increase exposure first. And I'm just going to bring it up to probably about 0.8, right around there. Then I'm going to do white balance. I'm going to get my eyedropper, and I'm going to go out in the sky somewhere and click there. And as you can see, it warmed it up a little bit too much to my liking. You can see sometimes it will do that, and you can just back it off a little bit, like right about there. So bring your temperature more towards blue. So that's a little better to my eye. And we're not robots, so do it to your, what you like, and you'll be fine. You won't have a problem at all. I'm going to do the graduated filter. I'm going to again have negative exposure. I'm going to hold my shift key down when I do it, and I'm going to pull it down pretty far on this one because we have this big expansive gray sky. And I'm just going to bring it down a little bit more. What my goal is, I think, on this shot, and I encourage you to do that when you look at your shot, see what your goal is. I want these grasses here, I want to exploit and have the brighter part of the picture in the middle. So I want the top to be darker and this bottom part to be darker, so we're looking more in the middle. So I have the graduated filter. Now I'm going to do the highlights. I'm going to bring those all the way down, and I can see this big spot here. It was blustery and snowing lightly, and when I got back in the car I noticed I had water droplets on my lens. So that's what those are, but we'll get rid of those later. Next, now again, we don't want to bring shadows all the way up. It's making it a little bit too bright. So I'm going to bring those, oops. Oh, you know what? I wanted to show that. I'm using a touchpad on a laptop, on a MacBook, and I accidentally used 2 fingers, and as you can see, my basic panel disappeared. A lot of people email me this and say they're missing a panel. Just right click anywhere over here on the right, and you can see how it's not checked anymore. Just check it. See? So if you're ever missing any of these, just right click on that right panel. So it's a good thing I accidentally did that to show you that. So I'm going to back, as I started to say, I'm going to back shadows down a little bit. I'm not going to have them all the way up like I typically do. Now I'm going to adjust the white and the black point exactly like I did the previous picture. So I'm going to click down on my Alt or Option key and then click down on this and bring the whites up until I get something coming through. Then I'm going to back them up until there's nothing coming through. Similarly with the blacks, I'm going to back those down until we get something coming through, and I'm going to leave a little bit coming through there. Okay? So there. Now she's shaping up a little bit. Next I'm going to bring clarity up quite a bit, and I'm going to bring contrast up a little bit, and might bring vibrance up just a touch, enhance these a little bit. The picture is crooked. I should straighten it, so I am going to go to this first tool right here and then click the angle tool, and I'm just going to draw roughly across the shot where I think the horizon is, like that, I think, and that'll straighten the shot. And I got some sensor spots, and I will get rid of those just in case anyone hasn't seen those videos. You could zoom in too, but I'm going to do it like from here. Just use that spot removal tool, and you can see this big here. Now again, I don't think these are sensor spots. They're actually wet drops, drops that were on my camera lens. So there's one over here. Yeah, I'll just do that real quick. Okay, alright, that's good enough for now. And now I'm done with the basic panel. I'm going to go to the tone curve panel. See these trees here? They're just really dark, no detail in there at all. So I'm going to do what they call a targeted adjustment on that. And I did a video on this. You could check that out, targeted adjustments. I'm going to click on this little tool right here, and it's kind of like a donut with a up arrow or an up triangle and a down triangle. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go anywhere on where this tree is, this dark tree, and I am going to click down on the left button of a mouse. I'm using a touchpad, but you get the idea. When I do that, it's going to disappear. Okay? When I click down, it disappears. I'm now going to drag up, and as you can see, it's going to make it brighter. And it's called a targeted adjustment. Now, if you look over to the right at the tone curve, you could see it's dragging the very bottom of that curve up to make that darks brighter. So it's targeting these darks right here. So let me turn it off for a minute. There's what it was, and there is what it is. I made those dark, like trees, a little brighter, so now we could see a little detail in there. That's all I'm going to do with that. Targeted adjustment on that. Now we're going to do the HSL panel. I want these grasses. This is a grass called Phragmites. I want the grasses to be a little more prominent. So I'm going to go to Saturation tab first, just like the other one. I'm going to bring the oranges up, and I'm going to bring the yellows up, and I'm going to bring the greens up. And then I'm going to go to Luminance tab, and I'm going to bring the make the oranges a little more intense, the yellows. Oops, there, I did that again. Sorry about that. I'm going to bring the yellows up, and I'm going to bring the greens down. Okay, make it a little more texture, a little more contrast between the different shades of the color in the grasses. Okay, so now what I'm doing, I am making this a little more prominent in the scene and making the vast gray sky less prominent. I'm going to not do anything with split toning. I'm going to go right to the detail, and in this case I'll do as that person suggested I should do, is I should bring masking up first. It's lagging a little bit. Before I do sharpening, which I said it really doesn't matter. I'm just going to bring sharpening quite high, because I could bring sharpening with this camera very high. That's a little too high, actually. I'm getting some artifacts there. Okay, good. You can see the snow on the back side of the Phragmites tops. So that looks good. Okay, we got detailed. Now, as I mentioned, this part here is just a little too bright to my liking. So I'm going to get a brush, and I'm going to make sure feathers all the way up, flows all the way up, and I am got exposure down. And I'm just gonna, this is gonna look stupid at first, but once your eye gets used to it, it won't look as bad. And I'm going to bring exposure down, but not that far. I'm going to just bring it maybe around there. So it's about a half a stop darker right in here. And then I'm going to get a new brush, and I'm going to get it about a third of a stop or so. And I'm going to make this smaller, and I'm just going to add some blotches here and there to add some more interest into those grasses. And that's it for the brush. I'm going to jump down to lens corrections, and I'm going to enable profile corrections. I'm going to remove chromatic aberration. As you can see, it got a little brighter again when I enabled my profile corrections. The lens I use, I noticed it tends to when I enable that, it tends to brighten the scene a little bit. I'm going to hit auto. See, I straightened it before, but it kind of tilted it a little more. I'm going to leave that off too. And I'm going to go back to the basic panel, and I'm going to pull the exposure down a little bit. Okay. And then I'm going to go to, I don't think it would look right with the vignette. Because I darkened the sky, so I'm not going to use a vignette, but I'm going to jump down and see what camera landscape looks like, kind of like that, and camera vivid, which looks identical. So we'll go with camera landscape. So this is where we stand. This is the before shot. I hit the backslash key on my keyboard, and this is our develop shot. You can see our snow's nice and white, and we have some texture we can see in the snow. We have these bright grasses, which I want you to see. I want your attention to be drawn to the grasses, and we didn't lose any real detail in the dark parts of the scene either. So you know, it's not bad. It's as I mentioned, it's not a great shot to begin with, but it's good enough where I give you guys clues on how you could develop your images. Remember, the main thing is exposure and white balance. So make sure you do everything you can to get exposure right in camera. That'll make everything a lot easier by using some positive exposure compensation. And white balance, if you could go through your manual and see how you could do a custom white balance setting for the scene you're going to do, but trust me, it's cold. You're probably not going to want to be fumbling around with knobs on your camera to do a custom white balance setting. So just shoot on auto and then bring it over in Lightroom and go into the basic panel and use this eyedropper and do anything that looks to be neutral gray, and that will adjust your white balance pretty close. And as you could tell in this one, I backed it down a little bit. I thought it warmed it up just a little bit too much. So that's it for episode 29. I appreciate everyone who watches my videos. Thank you very much. If you guys haven't done so already, please go over to YouTube and subscribe to my YouTube channel. I'd really appreciate that. If you have any questions, a lot of people ask me questions in the comments section. In the past, that was great. But now, since they've integrated it with Google+, I found a lot of times I can't answer a question. There's nowhere for me to reply, or I don't get notice that you even left a question. I've been going back to some of my videos, and I see all these people commenting that I didn't even know commented. So, you know, I have over 100 videos on YouTube, so I can't like monitor each one every day. I have to get noticed that somebody commented for me to go back and answer, or even to thank them for watching my video. So if you really have an important question, email it to me. My email address is tony@anthonymorganti.com. Just email it to me. It might take me a while to get to it. I get a lot of emails, so I answer them all the best I can. Sometimes it takes me a couple days to even get to one, though, so just have some patience. I'd appreciate it. So again, thank you. I'll be having some more videos this weekend, more coming up in the next few days. I appreciate everyone watching, and take care.